Okay, we're live. Thanks for everyone that's joined. We'll begin in about a minute. Hi and welcome to the latest Arsenal Supporters Trust virtual event. I do hope you're well this evening. A big thank you to everyone who's continued to support us. A big thank you to everyone who has recently joined. I know this could be the first event for some of our new members, so we do thank you. And whether you're from London, other parts of the UK, or from overseas, we definitely thank you all for joining. Just to note, some of you might have got your membership packs and, glad you have. There are some that won't, and those will be on their way soon. We've just got a little backlog, but you will definitely get your membership pack with a nice little Arsenal Supporters Trust badge as well. So those are coming, don't worry. And we've had a few questions asking, I live abroad, do I still get one? Yeah, absolutely, you do. It doesn't matter where you live, you'll get one. But just bear with us. We will be sending them out very soon. Right, I think we're going to crack on. So we've got some updates from the AST, just a little bit about what we've been up to, what we're doing, what our focus is for the next few days, a bit about the Brighton game, and then we'll bring our main guest, Henry Windsor, to the discussion, and we'll just talk to him about what's been going on, ownership, and all that kind of stuff. There is a Q&A function, so obviously feel free to use it. What we'll also do today is we will have some interaction, so you'll see on your device or your laptop that you can raise your hand. A little bit later on, if you have got a question, we'll try and bring you in. It'll be like a bit of a radio phone-in, where you'll get, sort of 10, 15 seconds to ask your question, and we'll try and get through as many as we can. So we do want to make this interactive. And those of you who have been to these events, I mean, this is now our 17th or 18th event. We've been doing them for a year, and actually our first virtual one was with Henry Windsor. So we've kind of come around. But those of you who've been to one before will know kind of how they work. So thank you for joining. You're gonna probably not see us, but you're gonna hear us for the first few. We don't want to block the slides. I'm going to welcome my colleague Tim. Tim, you with me?
Good evening.
Cool, good stuff. Right, let's crack on. So this week's priorities for the AST. So what have we kind of been up to, and what are we trying to do? So obviously we've been focusing on seeking genuine action from Arsenal, and that means the ownership and the governance change. And there is a fans forum meeting tomorrow where we expect to learn a little bit more. We've been focused on the return of fans, as we'll have 10,000 into the Emirates on Sunday for the Brighton game. We're still delivering our messages, our campaign, which is, of course, Kroenke out, fans in. And we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. And also preparing to present evidence, the government review and the campaign in Parliament as well with Tracy Crouch. So we'll talk to you about that. A few other things on the side as well. We're continuing to fight online hate, and some of you may have seen a clip sent around from Sky Sports. And we also had a meeting with UEFA, which Tim will talk to you guys about in a second. So Tim, well, right now actually, it's first up. Yeah. Tim, UEFA.
One of the extraordinary outputs of the last month's activity has been some of the people that never spoke to you before, but now you're their best friend. And one of these is President Seferin of UEFA, who invited the AST along with other supporter groups to a meeting last week online. He was in the Neon offices, and it was encouraging. I think he had some messages for us. If you move on, Akil, he thanked us for the support and the campaigning against the Super League. He said that he recognised that supporters were a much more important part of the game than they'd been given the credit for or the involvement of before, and has promised to rework the UEFA structures so there's much more improved dialogue with supporter groups, and we welcome that. We still have to see it happen, of course, but I believe it will give us a better voice on some of the ongoing issues like how you're treated as away fans at games in Europe, allocation for finals. But he has absolutely given the commitment that the dialogue and the structures will improve. And the other thing that he did, which I think is most crucial, was I pushed him very hard, as did one or two others, that despite seeing off the Super League, we really don't like the proposals that UEFA has approved for the reform of the Champions League from 2024. And working with other supporter groups and the Football Supporters Association and Football Supporters Europe, we will campaign against these changes, and that's particularly against this crazy idea of the wild card, where a couple of teams gets into Europe based on their historic rating. We will campaign against the group stages and going up to 10 games. And who wants to sit there 10 times and watch group stages just to reach knockout football? And we will campaign for more action to share the revenue across the teams competing in Europe so that the domestic leagues remain competitive and viable. That's all activity, I think, that will take place over the next few weeks and months, and we'll be working closely with other supporter groups on that. There's just a quick summary of the formal position which we've put together with the FSA, and we will send this round update to everyone so you have more chance to look at this. So now, Akil, perhaps before we get into the ownership stuff, I know you've done some important work fighting the online abuse this week.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been lots of work going on around stopping social media and online abuse, as you've probably seen. I mean, Arsenal themselves have been putting a lot out. There was a social media boycott a couple of weekends ago. That was fairly powerful. Keen to get Henry's view on that as well later. But we certainly, the AST joined the boycott. We're leading a fan working group with the FSA, so we're working with a few other supporter clubs, groups, trusts across the country. We're liaising with Arsenal on some joint activity. I mean, there is a lot that we've disagreed with Arsenal about in the last few months, potentially even years. But this is probably something we don't disagree on. We all want to stop online abuse, and it's obviously important. So we've done some media appearances, and obviously a clip was sent out when I was lucky enough to go on Sky Sports in the morning a couple of Thursdays ago and just kind of talk about online abuse. Of course, my day job is in social media as well. So it's, I sort of have a little bit of knowledge there. There's an online safety bill that was mentioned in the Queen's speech, and that's about fining social media companies if they're not quick enough to get rid of abuse. So they might take notice if they're suddenly getting kind of big fines. And then we're going to be launching something with the FSA called See It, Report It. The name might be changed, but essentially it's encouraging fans to, if they do see online abuse, then to make sure they report it. The more we report to the social media companies, the more they'll be forced to take some action. So that's something we definitely want to do. So there'll be lots more on this. Feel free to email me direct if you have views on this, something I'm very passionate about, coming from kind of a BAME background, but also because I work in social media. So do feel free to kind of ping me a message if you've got any thoughts on it. Tim.
And most importantly, we continue with the Cronky Out fans in messaging. As we explained last time, there were two key audiences for this. One is Arsenal, and we have told them exactly what we're looking for. But the other is Tracy Crouch and the government's fan-led review, as we believe if we're going to get structural change that is lasting and gives us a real meaningful say, it's probably going to come through some action from the government that will make the crowds respond. So what are we asking for? Well, we sent you this evening a more detailed statement that sets out our explanation of why we feel so disappointed in the KSE ownership, the lack of custodianship, the disrespect towards supporters, but this is the fans in part of the message. What do we want to see change? Well, we want to see supporters as shareholders again. That's important not only because we're custodians, but as shareholders, you get rights to an AGM, you get the report and accounts. If you have a good board structure with independent board directors, which we want to see, they have duties towards the supporter shareholders. We also think, and we will come back to this message, at a time when Arsenal are clearly struggling for finance, as many clubs are, understandably, with the pandemic, if you did a rights issue and issued shares to supporters, we could actually put money into Arsenal. And wouldn't that be empowering to actually help the club be stronger again through finances? So we want supporters, shareholders and independent board directors. On some issues, because it's very unlikely that supporters can get to 50+1 by buying shares, or that would be mandated. But we do think the German model, where you have a golden share, voting rights over key issues, such as not joining a Super League or not playing outside of Islington, that could also perhaps be delivered through a supervisory board. It's very interesting, and give credit to our friends at Spirit of Shankly at Liverpool tonight, who have secured constitutional and articles of association changes in Liverpool's corporate structure that will write them into the structures as a supervisory board with a say on key issues, which shows that it can be done. That means genuine supporter engagement, and underpinning it all, and I'm sure we'll come back to discuss this a bit more with Henry, but you need to see some independent regulation, be it independence in a new reformed football association, or be it a sort of off-foot to go alongside Ofcom. But we clearly have to have some overarching regulation managed by independents to hold the clubs to the delivery of the change that's coming. So that's our message to Arsenal, and that's our message to Tracy Crouch, who we hope we will have the opportunity to present to quite soon. I know she's keen to get her review going, and I think we'll see the announcement of her full panel members over the weekend, and hearings start very soon. More immediately, we want to put this message front of mind of both Arsenal and for the media, so that parliamentarians and Tracy Crouch and the government see it. So we are proposing to increase the messaging around the Brighton game. So we have some T-shirts on order for volunteers to wear. We have some signs. You can see a demonstration of the sign there. Does fold very easily into the pocket to go into the ground. But I think if a few hundred people make the effort to pick up one of these and hold them at the right moment in the game, that will be very visual for the media. And we think it is a positive message because, as I've just explained, there is lots that can be delivered for fans in. You don't just say, get rid of the owner, anyone can come in. We don't think that's right. We think change the ownership. It doesn't matter whether it's Stan Kroenke, Daniel Ek, or anybody else. Fans must be involved with golden shares, with seats on boards, with proper engagement, with AGMs in any structure. And we've already had 30, 40 of you, I think, email offering to help this weekend. If you see us with our posters, with our T-shirts, please take a few of the posters off us. You hand out to people in your queue, hand out to people in your row, take them in yourself. We saw the Super League was defeated because we all worked together. So please join with us and make sure that Henry, who will be in the press box, maybe not at our game, there might be a more important game he's chosen for the weekend, but certainly makes it much easier for Henry to write about what we're doing when there are visual displays like this. Akhil, do you want to talk through the social assets, as this is your expertise?
Yeah, and obviously we would say everything that happens, make sure do it safely, COVID safe and lawfully. But obviously we understand that not everyone will be at the game, and that might be because you haven't unfortunately got a ticket or you potentially can't make it to the ground. But we also know we've got lots and lots of overseas members, lots of overseas fans of the club. So we certainly want to involve you as well, because a lot of you have been in touch. So we've had some more social assets created. They're just going through kind of the final drafts. I think if the ones who have an eye for detail might have seen that the last slide said from our website on Friday, and this one says Saturday. So they'll probably be available Saturday morning, but they can be downloaded, saved. They'll be the right size for things like Twitter. can also be used on other channels. And we basically invite you to start posting them on Sunday ahead of the game. So when the protest is going on at the Emirates, you can also get involved on social media. We've got Kroenke out, even if it was spelt wrong. That was trending. It just shows, doesn't it, that fans don't actually even know how to spell his name because they just haven't had any interaction. But we want to get Kroenke out, fans in, trending as much as we can. So we'll certainly be sharing the assets and we'll let you know when they're kind of available. But if you go onto our website on Saturday, you'll definitely be able to see them. And then just very quickly, how you can get involved more generally. So we're thinking a little bit more long term. So obviously Sunday we've talked about. We will have some surveys coming out. The first one will be very soon. Please do fill that out. It will be a part of the newsletter. And that sort of helps us represent you properly, helps us just get a feeling of our members and our fans, you know, the sort of thousands of, and it's really important for us to have those kind of opinions from people. And actually, they really help us when we're talking to the club as well. Write to your MP. Over the next few weeks, we will sort of draft a template for you. So don't worry about it yet. But it's certainly something you can do. Of course, if you live overseas, you won't have an MP. So potentially you might not be able to. But certainly those who live in the UK can. Respond to the fan-led government review. So that will start over the next few weeks. And again, we'll let you know exactly how to do that. So there's nothing you need to worry about now. But this fan-led government review, it's not just a thing where it's going to go on in the corner and a few supporter clubs get involved. It is a fan-led review. So there'll be lots of opportunity for all of you as individuals, as supporters, as, you know, people who love the game to get involved. We've always said, you know, if you have strong views on Arsenal, feel free to tell them, and obviously attend our future meetings as well. And we are planning for the summer. We're probably going to have one potentially next week or week after, just focusing a little bit on the football side, talking about kind of on the field stuff, if anyone can bear it. But then we'll certainly have some more. We are planning something in the online hate space as well and things like that. So there'll be lots going on. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Can invite Tim and Henry to join me. Henry will be, there we go.
There's Henry.
There we go. So,
Henry, last time you were on, you were basically saying, come on fans, it's your time. You just won the FSA award. And you were saying you'd seen the pay-per-view campaign and you were like, you need to be more punchy and you need to go for it. Well, I think we delivered, didn't we, Henry?
You've absolutely delivered in style. And I think this has been, this has been a strange year. I've been fortunate to go to many of the games behind closed doors. And it is the season where fans' voice has not been heard inside grounds, but it's been heard so powerfully outside grounds. The protest at Arsenal a couple of weeks ago, that was just incredibly powerful. And I think full respect to everyone at Arsenal, all the supporters who were there, who made their point, and it was peaceful. I don't like seeing fans on the pitch. I just think the way you've handled it has been fantastic. So, look, this has been, for me, the year of the supporters in terms of everyone's been reminded by those of us who go to games, and players and managers about, how crap, to be honest, the atmosphere is without fans. There's no atmosphere. You're the lifeblood of the game. And also powerfully outside the ground. If I talk to UEFA, if I talk to the FA, if I talk to the clubs, even, the six naughty ones, they all say how powerful the supporters' reaction has been. And I don't think VAR has even united everyone in sport like the Super League did. So, look, absolutely. So if I suggested before that fans needed to get to the barricades a bit quicker, well, boy, you certainly formed them this time. And to be honest, this is not exaggeration. You rescued the game.
Yeah, and just obviously I was going to give you a bit of an intro, and then Tim got a bit excited there. I think he got quite passionate there. But of course, Henry, this is your third, your fifth AST meeting. I think this is your third virtual meeting. There'll be lots of people probably coming on for their first ever event, so the first time they've seen you. So obviously Henry's from the Times. He was recently the FSA Football Writer of the Year, so that's an award given by fans, which I know you're very modest and humble about it, but I know it's a massive deal. So we do thank you again for giving up your time. And I mean, I do notice normally, Henry, you're in your sort of work office with a lot going on in the background. You're not there now, so am I right in saying you're in maybe Times HQ?
I'm in Times HQ, and I'm about the only one. I mean, it's like journalism behind closed doors at the moment, because there's, it's just, I don't know, actually, to be fair to the media organisation, so many of them have done it remotely, I guess, like with sort of all our businesses. But it's interesting, just coming back to Arsenal, I've probably done about 20, 25 of the games behind closed doors, and talking to the stewards there. As the season has gone on, and as this year has gone on, they're the key workers of football, the sort of stewards. They're the people who, down in the car park, who test you as you come in, take your temperature, give out your accreditation, show you the way to go, who basically keep a stadium running. I mean, they've been fantastic, but you talk to them and it's like they are really down, because they're missing you. They're missing the family. I mean, Akil, I know where you sit, and there's a really nice lady steward who stands there, and I'll go and say hi to. And I mean, all these stewards, and I get the impression with the clubs that it's some of the older stewards, the ones who have been there longest, the ones who just love the club so much, they will come even if it's an empty stadium, because they know the club needs them. And I hope the club, and it's a hope with an asterisk by it, I hope the club appreciates the work that they've put in, because they've been suffering without fans, because it's been like, for them, it's like rattling around an empty home, because you're more than customers to them. You're friends with a lot of the stewards. You know them. You might have disagreements or whatever at times, but they're kind of part of your football family. So look, I think they've been unbelievable. I've been talking to the Premier League and also to the Football Writers Association, just to see if we can do anything to sort of show our appreciation to the sort of key workers of football sort of workers behind the scenes, because the players will obviously get the limelight, they'll get paid, managers too, but to keep a stadium like Emirates going is a huge event, even with no fans in it, and they really, really have missed you.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. A lot of them are Arsenal fans as well. And I've had so many messages from a few of them who are desperate to see fans back as well, because it's been a different experience for them too. So absolutely right. If I take you back probably about five or so, 6 weeks maybe, and that sort of weekend when the European Super League news was unfolding, I mean, we've had a few conversations at these virtual events around how it was for us, how we, as soon as something like that hits, we mobilize, we start to plan campaigns, we start to work with the other supporter groups and stuff. But what is it from a sort of writer's point of view? When did you first started to hear about it? When did you hear there was an announcement? And how was it for you that weekend?
It's funny, because I was talking to my editor when the story broke, sort of early afternoon. And he said, this is a dark day for football. And I said, well, actually, you wait till you see the reaction. And we all knew what the reaction was going to be. I mean, even the Prime Minister, who's a rugby and whiff-waff table tennis fan, even he realised, or people around him realised, how huge this was. Prince William got involved, supporters got involved, everyone rallied against this. And then I think the first match after the official announcement came out on that Sunday night, and everyone thought, well, these lot are a bunch of absolute charlatans. 30 seconds talking, well, probably 5 seconds talking with you, Akil, that they would have realised it's a non-starter. The backlash is going to be absolutely huge. And there was, it's very alarming how billionaires can be naive. But, they've got people around them, lawyers and PR people, and maybe it's in their interest to keep this whole thing going. But the Monday I was at Ellen Road. And obviously Liverpool were playing there. A few Liverpool fans turned up to demonstrate. And the unity amongst Leeds and Liverpool fans there was huge. And then you saw it the next night with Chelsea, the support for Chelsea, obviously at Arsenal as well. Your support was outside the ground. I thought was absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure you won't tell the club this, but being a sort of slightly nosy journalist, I climbed up one of the fire escapes to get a view down from the top. And there was a security guy up there who was saying, you're not really supposed to be up here, mate. So can I just look down? Because I wanted to see an actual just to sort of get not a general on a battlefield, but just get a broader picture of everything that was going on outside the armory. And I just thought it was magnificent. And I actually felt really proud of football's response. I was just talking to my boss and said, this is one of the greatest weeks for English football, because the enemy within showed their hand. And, you know, people like me, many people, you've been, well, I don't need to tell you about the sort of, about owners, about strange owners. And I write a lot about the Glazers. I've been writing about them from 2005, you know, since they came in and had that meeting at the FA. The FA was saying, oh, well, they're sweet, we'll be able to control the Glazers. I mean, they're very difficult. You know, this is still an ongoing battle, because they will be back. They'll be back with a similar plan, and they'll probably do it with a little bit more dialogue, and they'll dress it up a bit more, and there'll be more spin on it, and they'll try to include more people in it. But they will be back, because, you know, these people aren't fans. You're not telling me that Stan Kroenke grew up with pictures of Charlie George on his wall as a kid, or probably going back, you know, before that, Cliff Baston or whatever. You know, they're not fans. They are venture capitalists. It does what it says on the tin. So they will be back, and that's why it's brilliant to hear that your numbers are going up. And I talked to all the main supporters trusts, and they're reporting similar figures. I don't think quite as many as, you know, you've had following you, the increase, but they will be back. And that's why I think you've won the battle, but the war is still ongoing.
Absolutely. I'm going to invite Zach over. We've had some pre-submitted questions, Henry, and there's been a couple on the media coverage. I just wanted Zach to cover those off, if you didn't mind.
Yeah, so we got 2 questions submitted by our members about the media coverage, which I'll just ask you now. The first one comes from James, who says, how do you rate the media's coverage of everything that's happened and its ability to provide objective, critical additions to the debate? And the second question comes from Eamon, who says that last time you were on, you welcomed the proliferation of more football news sites. Do you think they're all reliable, and can we believe what we read online?
Well, I'll take Eamon's first. I think if you go on social media and you see certain people, so like, I'll say James Ollie. I think he's very good on Arsenal. Sam Dean, I mean, my old paper, The Telegraph, I think he's very good on Arsenal. David Ornstein. So I think if you, obviously The Athletic, formerly the BBC, I mean, I know how much Arsenal fans love him, because whenever I see him, I wind him up about it and go, oh, David, we love you. And because he's brilliant, because he's well connected, and he's very reliable. He wouldn't put his name to a story unless it was copper bottomed. I think he's excellent. So I think, talking about the sort of proliferation of the sort of digital world, when you see sort of if Sam puts a story online, or Martin Ziegler at our place, who did the Super League story, did it online and obviously followed it up in print. I think, so to come to Eamon's point, I think a lot of it is reliable. But I mean, I think you just use your judgment. I think if someone's backed by a reputable name, like The Athletic, like The Telegraph, like, if I can say it, you know, the Times, then fine. But to be honest, we are in the age of citizen journalism. A lot of fans have got good contacts, good, you know, gut instinct. You know far more about Arsenal Football Club than I do. Now, I might speak to board members, I might speak to, obviously, the manager, players, and people within the club. But I don't have that 360, you know, sort of vision and knowledge of the place like you do. So absolutely, I think we are in the age of citizen journalism. I think particularly pictorially, I mean, so many of the best images probably got lifted by the Mail Onlines and whoever were taken by fans at the protests. So I think it's great that a lot of, I mean, I know Arsenal Fans TV, I think some of it is, do you know what I think about it? I just think it actually just shows the passion that people have. You can say, well, maybe they go over the top, or a journalist goes over the top, but it's actually because people care. I quite rightly get a lot of stick on social media because some of the stupid things I say. The time I will really worry is when there's apathy, when there's no one reacting. And I think that's why the last few weeks have just been so powerful, because it just shows. Maybe it's because people have been locked up, they're a bit annoyed, they want to get back to you know, real life, normal life. But I just think it shows the power of football in people's lives. And James's point was about the general media coverage, was it? Do you know, I think a lot of it's been, we're following the fans. I mean, we're reporting on the protests we're reporting on. I mean, the fact that, I know you've got a statement coming out later tonight. We'll carry that digitally and we'll carry that in print in tomorrow's Times. So I think we're being very much guided by fans on this. And I think that's right, because, you are the heartbeat. I mean, I'm kind of a neutral observer who sort of turns up. And if I don't turn up at an Arsenal match, Arsenal will go on. If you lot don't turn up at an Arsenal match, the club's dead.
Absolutely, yeah. Cool, Zach. We'll have you back in a bit. So, I mean, we've talked about it briefly about Tracy Crouch's review and stuff like that. But, I mean, how do you see things going? I know we talked a little bit about it off air before we came on, but, I mean, how do you see that going? How much of a step change is it? And just your views generally around it.
Well, I know Tracy Crouch is a Spurs fan, if I can mention that, in such distinguished.
We broke the news last time around. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. She's so I hope she knows the difference between a regulator and Region, because we don't want Region running the game. I think she's really good. I mean, I'm always slightly suspicious of politicians when they stray into football, but she's genuine. Former sports minister, still plays, loves the game, passionate about the game, and cares. She really does care. And I think that, what's happened, I don't think we would be in the situation with the possibility of a regulator. And everyone talks about the regulator as if it's going to be one commissioner who's going to oversee everything. It won't be. It'll be a panel of about 5 or 6 people. And I think the move and the mood positively towards a regulation has been seen with Gary Neville's petition that he put up, which I signed, and about 140,000 people signed. And now on June the 14th, fantastic, Parliament's going to debate it. And I would imagine, I mean, there might be a few people like Rees-Mogg or whoever who doesn't know what's going on, but I think the majority of politicians will absolutely back it. And I do think, the power of the fans is going to be, for things to change, going to be as much through putting pressure on politicians as putting pressure on owners. Because I'm still quite cynical about these owners' intentions, because it's all about the bottom line and money ultimately for them. However much frothy PR they come out with, however many times Josh, with respect, comes on and talks to you. And by the way, I thought you gave him a fantastic grilling last time. And maybe he took that message back to Dad. But I do think it is going to be that pressure that gets put on the government, because the government can come in and, to use Boris Johnson's expression, he can drop a legislative bomb on the sport. He can genuinely change things. He can almost rip up shares. And I mean, be interesting if the Tory government went after private businesses, but I genuinely think there is going to be some change, but as much because of the pressure on Downing Street as Denver.
Tim, I mean, I saw you unmute and stuff. Obviously, you've been heavily involved and you'll certainly be leading this for the Arsenal Supporters Trust. What's your view? And obviously, you've worked with all the other supporters trusts as well, mobilising. I mean, how's it all going there, I guess?
Well, I agree with Henry. I've also done some work with Tracy Crouch in the past, and I don't think you could find a parliamentarian who is more of a football fan and is more on our side, and also, will speak up for what she thinks is right. It's extraordinary, really, Henry, that I was in the meeting with the Prime Minister when he said legislative bomb. I think he said it in response to my point about what could he do to stop this Super League and how could he back the FA's rules. But then he asked me to talk about the AST, and I explained about having our shares compulsory taken and some of the other problems we see with the ownership. So now in this extraordinary situation where the AST has had more dialogue with the Prime Minister of the country about Arsenal than they've had with the owner of Arsenal's football club in the last 10 years. Yeah. And that is just ridiculous. But when I explained this to the Prime Minister, he said, well, we've got to do something about this and we will be setting up a review. And 48 hours later, the terms of reference appeared and a chair is there. And like you, we have to hold these politicians to account until everything's signed, sealed and delivered. But I think change is definitely coming. What the AST has to do is help all our members mobilise so that we get as much change as possible out of the system. But it does feel like from being the day the Super League was announced, it was so depressing. You thought, is this the end of football as we know and love it? What are they doing to our clubs? But kind of, they've actually given us such a shot in the arm, haven't they? And, I hope that in 20 years' time, it will be seen as this turning point when we got our game back.
I mean, it's fantastic, and it's brilliant that you were in the meeting and sort of guided Boris Johnson. I mean, I still have this sort of slight suspicion with him that it's electoral. It's maybe to keep the sort of, the red wall or whatever it is on side. It's an easy vote winner. It was like the way when he got all the sort of the clubs to play their games throughout the week during lockdown, because he knew how important football is. He's not a football man, but he's an astute politician. So he realised it. And you know what? Whatever his agenda is, if he brings in a regulator and if he's doing it for vote winning reasons, then so what? Football's got a regulator, which I think is huge. And I think it was brilliant that you guys were in the meeting and you absolutely helped change his mind. And as you say, 48 hours later, Tracy's review was beginning to start.
And here's an interesting fact for you, and I think they have woken up to it. More people in this country play, watch and support football than vote in general elections. Now, whether that's a good thing or not, but if you think of the numbers of us, including those that watch just on television or attend games or play, it's just as important if you play and you volunteer in the community game. And what we really must do now, I think perhaps in the past, we haven't talked enough to the politicians and exercised our power. And it's like, if you don't do what we want, then we don't vote for you anymore. And this is how to be popular. And certainly you saw the presentation earlier on. Over the next few weeks, the AST's aim is to help all our fantastic members to communicate to Parliament.
And I think the one thing that Boris Johnson certainly knew before the Super League is that there were football clubs in crisis because because of COVID, because of the pandemic. I mean, one of my friends runs Cheltenham Town, he's chief executive there. He's a massive England fan. He's always on the road with England when Cheltenham are playing. And, he just saying, we are so close to going to the wall. And that is a well-run, well-supported club. It's like ripping a church out of a village or a town. I mean, they're so important. And I think politicians, even before the Super League, realised there is an attack on, the heart of this country, which is the footballing communities. And I think also talking to politicians, they realised how football did respond during the pandemic. I mean, football supporters, football clubs, players with Marcus Rashford, with his schemes, obviously had to change Boris Johnson's mind on that. But the work that football clubs have done and football supporters have done, the trusts have done, the clubs community foundations have done with food banks, with ringing up, isolated elderly fans, the community work, that definitely struck a chord in Downing Street. I don't think there's any other, might be exaggerating here, but I cannot think of any other walk of life that has responded to the community as football has. And I think there was an acceptance in government. Wow, we've got hundreds of thousands of football fans who are helping out at food banks, who are volunteering at the club, which stadium's been turned into a testing centre. So I think in a way, it created this sort of perfect storm, which when the Super League happened, politicians realised, actually, it's now time we gave something back to the fans. And as I say, the fans have been amazing in directing. So I know you said it was a very depressing day on that Sunday, but I actually felt, this could be a watershed.
Agreed. And I think nothing sums up the effort more than the £500,000 raised by football fans across the country in the response to pay-per-view, including 50,000 from Arsenal fans. So it was an absolute tremendous effort. Zach, I'm going to welcome you back because I know we had a few questions from members on the petitions and mobilising and stuff like that. So maybe there's a cross for Henry and Tim here.
Yeah, so there were two questions about the sort of political side of things. So I'll start with one which is for Henry, and then we'll come on to the second one, which is probably for both of you. This question comes from Swami, who asked about the open letter or the petition that you signed this week, and says, how, beyond obviously the ownership and the independent regulation, how does this benefit fans, given that there's not mention of things like ticket prices, TV subscriptions, match scheduling? Are there plans for it to widen out to address these sorts of things, or is that possible given some of the signatories like Gary Neville obviously have a conflict of interest there?
Well, it's a very good point from Swami, and this is the thing, because I know a lot of journalists were talking about it, saying, oh, could we actually sign it? Is it going to cause a problem with work? I didn't tell work that I was going to sign it. The moment Gary asked, I said, well, of course, yeah, I believe in you. I believe in bringing in a regulator. I think for the first time in 35 years of my covering the game, it's actually got a chance. No, I just think it is incredibly important. I think all those things that Swami is sort of talking about, those will all be just, ticket prices, kickoff times and all that. All those are, issues with the FSA, and you do so much amazing work on actually trying to raise these issues. I think if there's a regulator, that every meeting, when the panel meets, those issues will be charged. I mean, was it Spurs last night was 60 quid for a ticket? Back for Harry Kane's farewell match. They should have been, I think, okay, Burnley may be slightly different, and they've got a new owner who wants to sort of help out with Alan. But I think they were free. And then I think the Spurs fans were sort of kept on a higher tier because they didn't, I don't know whether the reasons where they didn't want to move all the sort of, the banners that they've got down there. But I just think things like that. I mean, so the Premier League, I'm always having this war with the Premier League, argument with the Premier League. They announced last week the date when the fixtures are going to be announced. And they do this every year. And I always tweet about it every year, particularly for promoted clubs. Clear your diary, 9 o'clock this day in the middle of June, the dates are going to come out. And then all I got back, quite rightly from fans, making me think again, was the fixtures going to get moved. So, pencil them in your diaries because we all know what's going to happen. So coming back to Swami's point, I think the regulator will address all of those issues. And I think what Gary was trying to do was just get a debate going in Parliament, discuss a regulator, possibly bring one in, maybe help Tracy Crouch's fan-led review. But they also put a date on it. They put a date on, we want a regulator in by December 2021. That's really shifting, particularly for football and for politics. So, all those things will be discussed, Swami.
That's great. And then, obviously, as you mentioned, that petition passed the threshold for signatures and will now be debated by Parliament. And John says, how do we, as fans, mobilise ahead of that debate in Parliament? And how will you and the press be part of that campaign and that mobilisation?
We'll cover it. I mean, I was almost on sort of looking at the petition every other hour just to say it's getting there. And I said, well, can we do the 100? Not we, can fans do the 100,000 in one day? And you did it easily in one day. I think it was 140,000. Then that date, June the 14th, came up. I think all the things that you've been doing brilliantly with the Supporters Trust, write to your local MP. I think you'll find that they might respond to that because they realise the power of football. They realise the Prime Minister and Keir Starmer are clearly backing this. So I think the direction of travel is very positive. I have to say, I think an independent regulator is probably the most likely outcome than all the other issues of people talking about golden shares and 50+1 and going to the sort of German method and private businesses having to give shares back. That would be nirvana. I would absolutely love that, but I'm not sure the Prime Minister would push as much for that. But I certainly think a regulator can come in to keep an eye on the owners and also all the other issues that Swami was talking about.
And if I just come in behind that, Zach, as Akhil said in the presentation, we will help the membership and wider football fans to communicate to Parliament. We're really lucky we have some great offers of help as well. I think on this call we have Anna Turley, who's a former member of Parliament and Arsenal season ticket holder, who's going to help us and tell us some of the best ways to get through. We will email out to people how you look up your MP, template letters to send, and really help people put that pressure on. But I know that remember, politicians read the media as well, which is why Akhil and myself make the effort to do the Today programme or Sky Sports News. Why when Henry writes about it, it's really important. I've got far more chance of an MP, flicking through the Times and seeing Henry's story than hearing about us in any other way. So it all comes together, and that's why what we're doing on Sunday is so important.
Tim and Zach, can I just ask one question back? What can we do more? What can the media do more?
I think it's the coverage, and just good coverage and good holding people to account. And I think, mate, I don't know how often you try, but have you thought about asking to interview Boris Johnson or Oliver Dowden? Or Tracy Crouch is sort of easy because Tracy is a football person, so she's available. But I think widen your net a little bit of who you ask for and some of what you try and do as coverage.
One of those is in the pipeline.
You're always ahead of the game.
Perfect. Of course, I was just reading a few of the other questions, which of course we will cover. Thank you, Zach. I want to sort of take it back to sort of owners and exec members, and this is more for you, Henry. But obviously, after the Super League kind of fell over like a pack of cards, we had Ed Woodward leaving Manchester United. I think he was going to leave anyway, but it certainly got sped up. What was your view on? I mean, you've got owners is one thing, and we'll come back to owners in a second, but you've also got executive members there. And we talked about the Arsenal CEO last time round as well. What is your view on the exec and their role in the Super League? Because, of course, it was, you know, at Arsenal, we know it was made by the Arsenal board because the apology was from the Arsenal board. So the decisions were made in the US, essentially. But what's your view on kind of the exec and the Woodward situation and sort of similar situations?
Every club has behaved with, I think, differing levels of venality going into Premier League meetings over the last 2-3 years. And talking to chief executives of other clubs who knew that the six were going to arrive at the last minute when you could actually, you know, this is pre-virtual meetings, pre-COVID, that they would arrive at the last minute, that they would almost be bullies in the playground, if I can use that expression, towards people, and the anger of, you know, you've got some really highly respected, very talented, conscientious chief executives. Susan Whelan at Leicester City. She's fantastic. She's got no ego there. She wants to run her club well and wants the sport to be run well. You've got Denise Barrett-Baxendale at Everton, chief executive there, whose heart is in the community, whose heart is in the Gladys Street. And they were, I can't necessarily use those two. I mean, it was so many of the chief executives of the 14 were horrified by the treatment, the arrogance of the behavior. And there was a huge desire for all these individuals from the six clubs that they actually, if they were going to keep attending meetings, this is obviously post the Super League climb down, that actually they put different individuals in. And obviously that's happening at Manchester United with Ed Woodward basically being looked pretty much like he was sacrificed by the Glazers to take some heat off them. Because it just became too personal. It was like a soap opera, like EastEnders, with everyone screaming at each other. The behaviour was honestly appalling for supposedly the most successful sporting league in the world to have the arrogance of the six against the other 14. So I think you're going to have to change the individuals because it's just become too many personality clashes. Good people amongst the 14 were outraged by the way they were being treated. So individual changes, first and foremost. I think the sport needs a cooling off period as well. They've obviously been punished by UEFA, the Premier League, and are going to come up with something. I imagine it will be a huge fine. Plus also we know that they're going to have to sign this thing that they can't make a Super League again. But I still come back to my original point. I still don't trust them.
Absolutely. I'm going to come back to Tim in a second. There's just a question for you, Henry. And obviously, since the fallouts happened, I mean, you know, Vinay Venkatesan, the Arsenal CEO, was part of the ECA. He then resigned as he was joining the Super League. And now him and Arsenal are in a weaker position. Also, probably in a weaker position in the league, in the Premier League as well. I mean, if I was Arsenal, I don't know how I could look Leicester City in the eye, put it that way. But how do you think that's unfolded? Because surely now Arsenal are actually weaker because they're not potentially at some of the tables they were at previously.
Definitely. And if you look at Arsenal traditionally, they've always been so respected in the game. The behaviour of a David Dean or the Hill Woods in particular. You know, Danny Fisman was respected within the game. I think it saddens me as someone who lives part of the time in Islington or Barnsbury, that they've lost that respect within the game. Look, Vinay is a really nice guy, but I don't think he's a leader. And I know leadership has been a huge issue for Arsenal over the last decade on and off the pitch. I still think they need a really strong, sound, just a chief executive with a moral compass, if you can find such a thing in football. But look, Leicester have got a fantastic chief executive. Everton, there are very well-run clubs out there who don't go wanting to trash the room each time there's a Premier League meeting. So, yeah, I mean, I think Arsenal, they've got a serious amount of the next appointments at Arsenal, whether it's managerial, and that's another debate, whether it's director of football or whether it's on the board. These are key appointments. They've got to appoint the right people. And personally, I don't trust the Kroenkes to appoint the right people.
And of course, the AST have been calling for more football experience, independent board members on the board for ages, because we've only got 4 and they're certainly not independent. We have got a hand up, which I'll come to. So Arthur, if you put your hand up to ask a question, keep it up and I'll come to you in a bit. Often people press it by accident and then realise and put it down again. But Tim, we've had a few questions about a certain Spotify owner, or is it 10% owner, or what, the founder of Spotify, Daniel Ek. And obviously members are just asking a bit about Daniel Ek. Dennis Bergkamp, you know, God at the back, I've got his shirt behind me, has obviously come out today about talking about how Arsenal have kind of accepted the situation and all that kind of stuff. And it hurts him to see Arsenal not kind of, you know, competing for titles and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, that Daniel Ek stuff, what, you know, a bid was made. Arsenal then said there was a bid. Daniel Ek confirmed it, or whatever happened. But I mean, where are we there?
Okay, let me give an update. And here for once, I may have an exclusive before Henry, in that, as people know, Daniel Ek came and spoke to the AST at the beginning of this process, and we gave him some of the messages from fans in, and he was receptive, and we thought that was very positive. And he says he believes in things like the golden share, like involving supporters. And if I just mention briefly, someone asked in the chat about, do you get hope from what's happened at Liverpool today? And say, absolutely, because Liverpool fans have in effect been given a golden share. They've been written into the company articles. Look what can happen if you put pressure on. So it can be done. And we were encouraged that Daniel Ek did this, not an endorsement, because you need to see a bid to endorse it. But since the issues of last week, Daniel Ek did make contact again and came back to give us an update and explained that a fully funded bid had gone in. Contact has been sought. I don't think it treated with the respect of a dialogue that you would expect from KSE, but maybe that's how they treat us as well, as people there. The message was very much that Daniel Ek says he's a supporter, he wants to help, and he intends to be around. He has 3 of the greatest names in Arsenal's history involved. One of them, it's quite interesting, this will make you laugh, we did get some feedback. They're obviously keeping an eye on us, because Patrick Vieira fed back that he was a bit miffed, but when Akil went on Sky Sports News, he had the shirt of Bergkamp and Henry behind him, but there was no Vieira shirt. Because obviously, you know, all of those players, and with Thierry Henry and Vieira, have been quite outspoken on the online hate issue, and I know I'd watched your appearance there. So
I did, to be fair to me, I wore that shirt the night before. I played some 5-a-side. So I haven't obviously been able to speak to Patrick, and I probably never will get the chance. But if I could speak, if Patrick, you are watching this, I wore your shirt the night before. It was in the wash. That was it. I chose you before the other 2. But anyway,
just to finish on Daniel Ek, as we say, we don't dot the I's and cross the T's, but we do believe there was a firm, substantial bid there. We do believe there is genuine intent. And some people say, oh, it's, you know, criticised and say, oh, it's being played out in the public eye. Well, I say about bloody time. Too much in football is secret from us fans. Too much is kept away from us. And I think we should know more about what's going on with the ownership and more about what people are doing. And if someone is putting a serious bid in, the fact that they sought us out, spoke to us, told us what they were doing and asked for a dialogue, I've got to think that is a better approach than some of the secretive attempts that go on. And even today, where we see Arsenal repaying 120 million to the Bank of England, but we understand that another loan has been taken out to replace that loan, but we don't know on what percentage terms or what's happening. This is what an independent regulator might do, Henry, is shine a bright torch on what's going on. So I hope that that's as much of an update as we can give for now. But I hope that gives some more information to people. And I think the other message, there was a short statement put out by Daniel Ek, which people weren't sure whether to interpret it as he was giving up or not. But he has said that he remains available, he remains keen to contribute or buy the club if he can. But obviously, you can't have a buyer if you don't have a seller.
Absolutely. I'm going to bring Arthur in because he's still got his hand up, so I presume he has got a question. Arthur, if you want to unmute yourself. And
hi, guys.
Hiya.
Henry, you touched on it a minute ago. I just wanted to highlight, and I think everyone agrees with this, really, but Leicester City, the way they are owned and run, they're just an example of what a football club are and what they should be. Their fan-owner relationship, you know, top on the pitch, celebrating with the players. When, you know, Kroenke would never do that. When will we get that at football? And that's what we need to be pushing for.
I mean, it's a really good point, Arthur. I mean, I just hope that some of the owners were watching Kasper Schmeichel go up into the stands and talk to Top and just say, listen, you know, you're one of us. You know, your father set us on this road. There's a huge banner for, I mean, can you imagine Arsenal at the cup final with obviously from last year, but with a huge banner of Stan Kroenke in the corner? That, you know, it wouldn't have probably lasted that long. Whereas Vichy, there was just this huge picture, the banner of him in the corner talking about the sort of dreams and how he sort of got Leicester on this path. And he's, you know, I mean, I interviewed Top about sort of 7-8 years ago, and he was just completely genuine. And he was actually, which was rather sweet. I walked out of the room, and I think Susan Williams was there, and I just said to her, he seems almost in awe of the fact that he's owning this club. And I mean, Vichy was an amazing man. And Top, just little things like during COVID, issues at the local hospital, the Children's Hospital in Leicester. I live part of the time near Leicester. £2 million suddenly appeared, and that, you know, the money was paid to them. It is a fantastically well-run club. So I think you can, you know, you have to speak the owner's language, and you have to say, yes, you can treat a football club as a financial asset. Yes, you can maybe double your money in a 10-year period in it, but you can also treat everyone within the building with respect and get a lot of love back and actually have some fun along the way. And that's why I actually, in a way, pity Stan Kroenke, because how much genuine enjoyment does he get from Arsenal? He never turns up to matches. He doesn't even get a terrible reaction if he turns up. Look at the abuse Daniel Levy got last night. He obviously has to go to matches at Spurs. So I just hope they looked at what Top did. I just thought that was another marvellous day for English football with a well-run club. I mean, like a player like, without getting too technical and getting the ball out, a player like Fofana, that's the type of player that Arsenal should have been recruiting. You know, Wilfred Ndidi a few years back. You know, these are the type of players, great recruitment, good management of the club, great management in the dugout. I'm a huge fan of Brendan's. You know, and a few people at the club did actually mention Jamie Vardy, £40 million plus £1. That summed up Arsenal's state of mind at the time. Was it 2016? So yeah, look, Leicester are a great role model, and completely your point's right, Arthur. You know, they're just owners who care.
The £1 bid was Luis Suarez, but Arsenal were in for Jamie Vardy, and I think only offered about 20 million, if I'm not correct. Yeah, but Suarez was 40 million.
Was it a 40 plus one? Right, my apologies.
But I mean, it's safe to say Arsenal messed both of them up because none of them ended up at Arsenal. So we are going to take a few more questions, but I'm going to ask you about Mikel Arteta because we did quickly talk off air and there have been a few questions, and now we're talking about the manager. There was a specific question about something you said after the Chelsea-Arsenal game. I'm just looking, we've had so many in, so I do thank all of our members for their questions. We will try and get through as many as we can. As you can imagine, there's a lot. I'll find who it's from. But it was about that you said about after the Chelsea-Arsenal game, you talked about kind of Arsenal backing Arteta. What did you mean by that? Did you mean purely by money? Did you mean, you know, what was it you meant?
To be honest, Ackle, I can't remember what I said last week, let alone 3 weeks ago. And unfortunately, when it's out there on social media, you know, you can't escape it.
Muz Rahman does. So he said that you tweeted recently after the Chelsea game that club need to back Arteta in the summer and that you can see some progress. Would you elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, because I do have sympathy for sort of managers who have come in the last sort of couple of years, because it's been really difficult for them because they haven't had a proper pre-season. Okay, Arteta won the cup last year. I think that should have given him time. I mean, I know a lot of people, I know a lot of you sort of disagree, but I actually do think there's a good manager in Arteta. I think he genuinely cares about the club. I think I have a slight issue with one or two of the signings. I don't see the point of them. I wish that he would believe in Martinelli a bit more. I don't think it's a sort of Foden sort of. I just think I just don't understand it. I would play Martinelli regularly, but look, he's giving Smith Rowe a chance. Obviously, Bukayo Saka will be in the England squad, and he's given him a chance. I mean, I was up at where was I? I was up at Rangers seeing Steven Gerrard, and they were just saying there's some fantastic young players at Arsenal. We'd love to get them on loan, and I sort of mentioned 3 or 4 of them, and they immediately went, well, he's good at that. He's good. I mean, they just, you've got some great kids coming through. And if I can just say a quick word of credit to Steve Morrow here, who the Football Association have just taken over. I felt a bit sad for him when he left, because I mean he worked to get a lot of these kids in with the other scouts as well. So I think Arsenal are in a good place in terms of the quality of the youth. I'm slightly sad that Eddie Nketiah hasn't trained on, certainly at club level. I think he may possibly have to move on, but you've got some really good players. And I just think, give them the chance, but you do need a clear out. I mean, you've almost got 3 managers sort of buying and some odds and sods through recruitment. You need to have a big clear out before you can start bringing people in. You still need to bring people in. But I tell you what, that's not a bad front 4. However you juggle it. Nicolas Pepe is playing better. You got Saka, Tierney at fullback. For me, I think Tierney's a captain long term, because I just love him, because he's just got that sort of slightly nutty, nasty streak, which I think you need to be an absolute winner. So I don't think, I can see what Arteta's trying to do. I think some of his team selections have been a little bit strange at times, but then I'm not at Colney. I'm not, sitting next to looking at a computer and finding out whether someone's in the red zone. I mean, what's been quite interesting behind closed doors is that actually a lot of sports scientists have been scattered around, and some of them have been sitting in the press box, and they're onto the dugout, and you can almost hear them sending messages down saying so and so is heading into the red zone. You need to get him off now. So look, there are different pressures on managers, but I don't know. I think another managerial change doesn't help, because you're going back to the start again, and it's another 2 years wasted. So I hope Arteta's given another season. He needs a transfer window to get people out, to get people in, and build again. I just wish he would just use some of these hair-end kids a bit more.
Yeah. And how do you think Sunday will go? I mean, firstly, which game are you going to be at? And do you think Arsenal could sneak in above Spurs? It's a question from Kevin Wright, by the way. Right. He's obviously getting excited.
Yeah, I mean, that would be quite extraordinary. I mean, that would be quite a comeback. I mean, it'd be great for Arteta. I mean, Brighton will be difficult, but I mean, is that right? There's going to be a protest at the weekend.
There will be.
Yeah. I mean, I've read your statement. And I think it's really important, and I wish that all supporters, trusts, and groups would echo your words, that actually get behind the team, because the team really needs you. And it's so powerful now that even if it's, how many fans have you got in?
10,000.
10,000, that's huge. I mean, I think I was at the League Cup final, and there were 2,000 for each side, and it was, even just, every little count. But 10,000 would be sensational. So yeah, get behind the team. I think you'll win that. I just think there's a bit of momentum in the team now, particularly if Martinelli starts. And they obviously have to be, on Martinelli, look, he does get injured. So, I mean, Arteta, everyone thinks, why has the manager done that? But there may well be medical reasons, emotional reasons, whatever. I think at some point in the next year, there's going to have to be a big call made on Aubameyang. But then he might think, well, actually, things are improving at Arsenal. I will give absolutely everything, because what a player he is. I mean, he's a fantastic player, but he's just not been the same player in the last year. But yeah, just give Arteta a chance. That is my personal feeling. And look, with most managers, it ends in tears, and it may well end in tears in Arteta. But I just don't see the merits of ripping it all up and starting again at the moment.
Absolutely. And were you at a game yesterday? How was it with fans back in? How much of a difference was it?
I've been in a couple of games with fans back in, and it's the first time. When was it? The FA Cup final on Saturday. It was the first time I've been on the North Circular punching the ceiling of my car that there was traffic. It was great because, I mean, I've done about, God knows, about 160 games behind closed doors in the last year, and there's been no traffic. You know, I mean, I can leave at the last minute and get in, and you know, we park at the club. And look, it's rubbish without fans. I mean, it really is. And I mean, I knew it was going to be rubbish without fans, and it was rubbish without fans. I mean, I speak a bit of French and German, so it's actually been quite, particularly watching and listening to Tuchel in particular talk. Arteta, obviously, I don't speak Spanish, but Arteta speaks a range of languages, and he's really onto the players, and that's been interesting. But actually, fans coming back in, oh God. I mean, it was just, you know, it was almost quite, I mean, I'm a cynical old hat, but I was almost sort of emotional seeing fans coming back in. Because I think partly because of what happened in the Super League, but partly because you say football then, but because the atmospheres, it's so sad. I will not allow my children to watch games with fake crowd noise. I said, you've got to realise there's a pandemic, it's a serious world out there. The reason why there's no one in the grounds is because of a pandemic. I also quite like them hearing what the players are shouting. And, you know, I've now got my list of the noisiest players out there. I think it's Connor Cody, Kasper Schmeichel, and Harry Maguire when he's playing. I think those.
Is there any Arsenal player that's even anywhere near?
You've got a quiet team, mate. You have got a quiet team. I think I don't need to tell you that. I mean, beforehand. But, you know, it's affected teams in different ways. I don't think West Ham would have had the season that they have had with fans in the London Stadium, because I think they get a little bit twitchy because there's the issues with the board. They remain to be convinced about David Moyes. Of course, now when West Ham fans come back in, it's going to be like Woodstock. It's going to be a huge loving because the team would sort of do better. So honestly, fans coming back in, it's just it is quite moving. Even an old hat like me gets emotional about it. I actually applauded some fans when I was walking up Wembley Way, and I thought the weekend there were a whole load of Leicester fans there, and they would just see about V Shy, and I just walked through them when I was filming, doing my social media stuff, and I just applauded them. I just said, "It's just brilliant to have you back."
Perfect. I'm going to let someone in, Alexis. I don't think it's that Alexis, by the way. I'm just noticing. Well, I just got to give a shout out to Anja, who said, "Good evening, guys. It's 6 a.m. here in Melbourne. Just finished an 8-hour shift, and he's listening to this. So it just shows that, you know, the level of membership we've got." He's talking about Kieran Tierney. He just thought he maybe went down a little bit easy yesterday. I think on that little sort of, there was a little bit in the corner, and he did get booed, but then he came back with a great assist. But great to hear your views, Anja, and thanks for joining us. Alexis, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yep. Thank you, guys. How you doing?
Good.
Hi, Alexis.
Welcome.
Thank you all for another encouraging meeting. My question is about the idea of independent regulation, which I think Tim brought up earlier. When you're referring to introduction of independent regulators, what exactly do you mean? Like independent of whom? Who would they represent? I understand that they're meant to represent us fans, but what I'm asking is, who would this independent body be governed by? And I was asking that because I really can't imagine a scenario where you wouldn't end up with quote unquote experts governing a competition as big as the Premier League, as opposed to a group of match-going fans or something like that, if you see where I'm coming from.
Tim, do you want to get the first bit, then Henry, give us your view as well?
Yes, I think the independent is important. It means that they are independent from any vested interest. So, you know, club owners who might want, as Henry has said, be in the direction of a Super League, or other views that would mean that they didn't take an approach to the rules and regulations and the framework that have been set that wasn't independent. Now, I think Henry might come in on this. I think there are two ways that you do it. You could establish an independent regulator through Parliament, which is commonly done in some other sectors, or you could make significant changes to the Football Association and put independence into their structure by having more independent non-executive directors, maybe having some fan representation, and you would still want to have a Premier League board member, a Football League board member, because you can't lose all the football know-how. I always tell people, Henry, and this is for those older ones amongst us, but the worst governance decision in the history of English football, maybe up to the Super League, was Wimbledon going to MK Dons, which was given to an independent panel. And because it was too independent, it didn't have anyone who could say, hang on, it's not football culture to move your club 200 miles. So you do have to get the balance right. But I'd come back, the key thing is it must be independence of the money and the owners.
Yeah, I mean, hi, Alexis. I think it's a really good question. I think it is. I mean, we can talk about the Football Association, who are technically the governors of the game or the guardians of the game, but they don't have the power anymore. The power's with the clubs, the power's with the players. You have to go above that, and that is government. So I think this will be almost like a sort of off foot. You have Ofcoms, you have Ofsteds, and things like that. This would almost be a sort of an off foot. I think it will be a panel of people. But this whole thing about independence, I mean, I've talked to some of the people who are involved in sort of pushing this, and I go, when we have a press conference to announce this, I'm going to be there in the front row, sticking my mitt in the air, saying, "But who? Who is going to be this commissioner, this regulator? Has it got to be someone with a footballing background? Because then can they be truly independent? Is it going to be a supporter? Will they be truly independent or have the expertise?" So I think it's going to be a panel of individuals. And I mean, we call it independent. Look, it's going to be independent of the Football Association, of the Premier League, of the clubs, of the EFL. But I do think it won't be truly independent in that people will be in there having an agenda. But, you know, one person's agenda is another person's expertise. If Tim's on there, I would trust Tim on there. He will obviously see things from a fans and an Arsenal's perspective. But then, you know, you have to trust the individual. I think when the regulatory panel comes in, it might have a sort of bumpy couple of years with people coming in and out. If you've got, you know, if they've got maybe someone from the media in there, if stories leak out, that's going to be an issue as well. Will they have to sign an NDA almost for dealing with this? So I think it is going to be fascinating. But I think, coming back to your point, I think it will be almost a sort of government-directed panel above and out with football's usual power base.
What we must also remember, Henry, is the more important thing is what they are asked to do, rather than actually the independent regulator function. I'll give you an example. If they are meant to oversee that clubs engage with supporters properly through an AGM, through productive meetings, through genuine dialogue, through certain golden share requirements, the independent regulator's job is to make sure it happens. It isn't to have an opinion so much. It's like a police force in football. So, did you hold that AGM with the Arsenal fans? Did you actually meet with them and have proper dialogue? Did the fans forum meet enough? So I think perhaps we talk too much about the regulator and not enough about what we actually want to see as the rules in the regulation.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And I would hope that the panel would have, the regulatory panel would have access to all board meetings and all conversations between executives and almost the emails to be an early warning system for in case they pull another stunt like the Super League. I don't think they'll do it for a bit, but I think they'll try and bring it in one guise.
Yeah.
You know, they will still continue to pursue money.
Sorry, Aki, I'll give one very brief example.
Quickly.
Stan Kroenke made a commitment to meet with Arsenal fans in the takeover document. Hasn't done it. In my view, a regulator steps in and says, you're fined, or you can no longer own this club, or takes punitive action because the commitment to do something has not been fulfilled.
Yeah, a 50 million quid fine, and Stan Kroenke might listen.
Right, a last couple of questions. We've only got a few minutes left. I've spotted another one, Yonghon Lee, who's in Hong Kong, and it's 4 a.m. there, and he woke up. He said he set an alarm and woke up in the middle of the night just for this. So, wow, we are absolutely honoured. Thank you for that. Last couple of questions. One from Chaz Singh, which I think is quite interesting, and we probably don't know the answer to this, but Henry, keen to get your opinion. Despite fans coming back in smaller numbers, and we don't know what August is going to look like yet, do you think there will still be a push for to have Premier League games at 3 o'clock, like televised as they are currently, or do you think we'll kind of go back to the old model, or what's your kind of view there?
Well, 4 a.m. in Hong Kong, that reminds me of the last time I was there. I was in the bar next door to Gaza and Sheringham in the jump club. we'd arranged the journalists were going to one bar and the players were going to the other bar, and we waved them off, have a nice night, got on the plane heading home, and got a call from the editor when I landed. He said, "Have you seen these pictures? You were out in Hong Kong at 4 a.m. I said, "Oh no, what happened? We were in the bar next door." Anyway, another story. Sorry, what was the question again?
3 p.m. kickoffs. They're obviously shown on TV now. What do you think will happen?
Can I say, I think it's going to be a free-for-all. I just think they'll be shifted around all over the place. I think even more, because I think it wouldn't surprise me if that's already been agreed, and that's why this television deal's already gone through. I think 3 and what's that? Liverpool had a fan Zoom. They called it When Sunday Comes, because they very rarely had Saturday 3 p.m. kickoffs. Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm a football journalist. I can't remember the last time I went to a 3 p.m. Saturday kickoff.
Tim, any view quickly before on that? Or
well, they've rolled forward the existing deal, and in theory, when crowds come back, it will go back to the arrangements as before. So that's about 4 of the 10 games will be live, and the others will fit into the usual slots. One thing I saw is I think they're going to play more games later on Saturday, because the managers, particularly with European teams, is this right, Henry, have been complaining about the turnaround times. So that's something that's come out of kind of player welfare and the managers complaining. But yeah, it will go back to the old structure once all fans are in.
Perfect. Okay. There's been lots of questions. I know Tim and Phil behind the scenes have been answering them. So I do hope your question has been answered. We'll try and get back to a few. I can see there's a few really good questions, actually, that we'll definitely try and get back to you on. I guess my final point, and we didn't mention it last time, Henry, because we ran out of time, but it's our old friend VAR. So my question to you, Henry, is what's your view on VAR now? Now we've had it for a while. And then for Tim, how are fans sort of going to get involved in the VAR debate? And obviously we're doing some work with the FSA there, so maybe you can expand on that. But Henry, over to you first. View on VAR.
I still retain a belief in VAR, because having been in, if I can bring Thierry Henry's name into slight disrepute, I was in Paris when the Irish were knocked out because of his double handball to Gallas when they scored. I think we need technology. It's crazy that everyone in the ground could be streaming the game. I could be watching it on the monitor, and the only person who doesn't have access to that is the person who makes the decisions, the referee. But honestly, I think it's a change of culture, not a change of technology. We have to stop almost the schoolmaster checking of everyone's homework, which is a Mike Riley thing, so that every decision gets scrutinised, only for clear and obvious. And another thing, got to sort out the offside thing, because the game is about goals, and you almost get the impression that Stockley Park, they're joy killers and they want to stop goals being scored. So get the frames per second better. Maybe like the Dutch do, have a little bit of leeway. VAR seems to work in a lot of competitions. The other thing, one reason why it does there, and why we'll probably have a European Championships where people like the World Cup in Russia say VAR actually work well, is the quality of the officials. I don't think this is a great generation of officials. So the Premier League, EFL, the FA need to pump more money into referees, protect them at a younger age because of the abuse that they get, and then bring better quality officials through. And officials who've actually got the confidence to say, actually, I'm not going to go to VAR, let's play on.
Yeah. And Tim, I don't want your opinion on VAR, because I've heard it several times and nobody wants to hear it. But how can people get involved, and what's the work with the FSA?
Well, we will put a couple of questions on VAR into our end of season survey, so people can tell us what they would prefer. The big problem with VAR is nobody likes it like it is now, but everybody's got a different way of how you would change it. But we will do our best to collect views on that and feed them in.
Perfect. Right, Henry, I think we're going to let you go. I have gone a few minutes over, so I do apologise. I know you have to now make it back home to your lovely family. So I do thank you for spending the last sort of hour and a half with us. You know, it's your 5th one in a few years, so really do appreciate it. We'll promise we won't ask you for a few months now.
No, well, Ackle, thanks for asking me. And also thank you, everyone, AST. You know, you did save football this summer.
Yeah, I think collectively all fans and I think a lot of our membership, you know, just seeing there was some real tough, long days in there, but we kept getting our members emailing us, telling us to keep going. How can they help? And it really has made a difference. So, you know, we owe a lot to our members, and that's all of them, the domestic ones and the overseas. So absolutely a team effort. But enjoy the last kind of game of the season. Where are you on Sunday? Are you at?
I'm actually holed up writing a book before the Euros.
Oh, so, fine. Okay. So you'll see it unfold. Yeah. Take care, Henry. Good luck. Enjoy the Euros.
Cheers.
So that was obviously Henry Winter, chief football writer of the Times and the FSA footballer of writer of the year. So thank you to Henry Winter. Tim, any last points before we head off? So we are planning to do a slightly more football related event in a week or two, where we'll kind of just talk about the season. Adrian Clark will be our guest. We kind of confirmed him up today, and we might have just somebody else on board as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about kind of how players have done this season, and well, we'll maybe just talk about Saka for 90 minutes and maybe a bit of Smith Rowe, because I'm not sure who else we'll talk about. But Tim, anything else to mention before we say goodbye?
No, just thank you to everyone for all the questions. I know some of our colleagues have been giving updates. Some of them people are making points. It's very useful. It helps us shape our surveys and our thinking. And thank you to everyone for the wonderful support. Try and help us over the next few weeks with the Cronky Out fans in message and see if we can make Arsenal a better club for all of us to be involved in.
Absolutely. It may be tough, but I think we all love the club, so we all want it to improve and get back to the days of those two. And Dennis, of course. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. If you are going to the game on Sunday, we might see you there. Obviously, do everything safely. Get behind the team for the 90 minutes. We could still finish above Spurs, which would be pretty funny. But absolutely, I think as Henry says, kind of the war is still going on, and I think that will go on for a little while longer. So Cronky Out, fans in. Take care. Good night. See you soon. Bye.